Hey, HCDA, and today I'm really excited to show you a sneak preview of Brave New Wonders, and I'd like to thank the developers for sponsoring this video to make that happen. This is an upcoming factory automation game that not only allows you to build a spaghetti-free factory, as it doesn't use any belts, but it also introduces something I've never seen before in a factory game: use of actual AI programming to optimize your factory. Now, to be clear, this game was not made with AI, so artists are still getting paid, and no data centers had to be built to make this happen. You can also currently play a demo of this game during Steam Next Fest, which is available as this video goes live. Let's start at the beginning. Brave New Wonders is set in a kind of steampunk world, post-apocalyptic, and we are playing as Mira, who is in this monowheel vehicle over here that we'll use to move around in a second. And we are being guided by Corin, who is going to help us explore this world, build our factory, and survive while doing that. So Mira can actually move around by herself. You can just move around with the WASD keys, or you can click and she will follow that. But you can also just uncouple the camera, so you're not stuck looking at your main unit all the time if you don't want to. That is actually very convenient if you want to rearrange the things on your factory on the other side of the map, because as you can see, the map is pretty large, and that is definitely going to be a thing. We're also not moving that fast at the beginning, but luckily that will get better as we go. Now, there's a couple of things already. So there's the strange station over here that we are using as a kind of a research hub. We have some power production over here, and we have this factory that we're going to use to make ourselves some robots, because this game does not have belts. Everything we're going to be doing is going to be done by moving things around using robots. Now, to get ourselves going, we are going to pick up some of these supply drops. There are some metal plates in here and some storage to go along with that. And we're going to use those metal plates to turn them into the train station. Of course, this wouldn't be a true factory game if we couldn't mine resources ourselves. So first thing we're going to be unlocking is that actual capability, so our monowheel can then do some mining. And yeah, as you can see, there's a lot more technologies to come after that. So we're going to be here for a while, but that's of course never a bad thing. This is also going to unlock the first few recipes that we need in order to progress. One thing I highly appreciate about this game is the fact that we have a inventory that has a pretty sizable size. We can carry up to 200 things, and those can be individual different types of products, or that can be a stack of 200 of one thing. So you have a lot of flexibility there. However, for the moment, what we're going to have to do is click this resource. This is a crystal mine that is going to give us some crystal shards, and as you can see, we are just manually mining ourselves. Now, of course, we're not going to be doing that for very long because we want to automate things. Which means we're also going to be mining some of this metal over here, and that is going to give us all the resources that we need to build our first smelter. You can do all the usual stuff, so you can rotate buildings and things like that. And if you place down a building, it will get instantly built if you have the materials for it. If you build it somewhere you cannot have access to because it's out of your range, or if you don't have the materials, you'll just get a placeholder and you can then bring the materials to that. Buildings, of course, also need some power, so we can use the power poles to do exactly that. So we can build one, let's say, over here, and then we can build another one over here, and that should all then connect up. You can very clearly see where the power is going. There's a limited amount of connections per power pole, but as you can see, that is not a problem. So it is smelting time. Nothing groundbreaking here, but this game is really good at telling you all the information you need to actually, build your factory. So we set some metal plate production over here. We can see that we need 2 resources in order to make 1 plate. This can actually take a stack of 10 in it. It's going to take 10 seconds to produce this. It's going to require some power. If you hover over the building itself, by the way, you can also see what the recipes you have unlocked for that specific building, so you don't have to look up in a codex what you need to produce what. And then all we need to do is just go into our inventory and start throwing some stuff in there, and it will start producing metal plates. I'm gonna do the same thing over here and set this one to produce a refined crystal, and of course that means it needs more power, so let's put a power pole to go along with that as well. What side am I gonna build a power pole? Probably on this side, because we need some of the power here. And again, just throw in some materials and we're good to go. Of course, we don't want to do all this manually for a long time, so what we're going to do is we are going to put this compute core that we found into this machine over here, and that is going to make an automaton for us. This is a flexible type of resource that we can use to make little automatons. For example, a mover that can move stuff around, or a miner that is going to be able to mine stuff. For example, we have some resources over here, and we have the factory that needs those resources over there. Now, of course, I could easily do this manually, but just to show you how this works, we can build ourselves a little mover. We can give it a name if we want as well, by the way. This can just carry a single item, but, you know, that's going to be more than enough for now. We can assign it behavior. Now, there's different behaviors that we can make, not at the moment, but we'll be able to do that in a second. But for the moment, let's just go with the mover bot thing. So we can say, okay, pick your items up over here and then drop them off over there. Seems very straightforward, but this is already a bit more advanced than some of the other games that do something similar, and it's gonna get way more fun from this point on. Of course, we can't actually mine just yet, and this is where the mining research is going to come in. This is going to cost us just a little bit of resource and unlock a new type of robot. This is a miner that has a mining behavior. You can set it where to mine and where to deposit stuff. So, let's set this as a focus. Do I have the resources for that on me yet? No, I don't, but I can just easily pick them up. I could also have a mover bot bring that to my facility, but this is probably going to be quicker for the moment. There we go, and let's complete that. Now we have the miner available. And similar to before, all we need to do is just place down a miner, set the mining behavior to, in this case, mining bot, and it will tell us, okay, where do you want us to mine? I want you to mine over there. Where do you want it to be deposited? I want you to deposit it over here. Now, this thing is really slow, as you can tell, but it is able to mine, and it's going to do exactly that. And of course, there's nothing stopping us from building some more. We still have 4 of these automaton slots over here, another 6 waiting for us, so we can build up to 10 robots. But for the moment, I think this is going to be just fine, because let's see, this takes 10 seconds to produce, and yeah, it seems to take him about 10 seconds to do a full round trip. A little bit more than that, but close enough for the moment. And again, something this game does really well is just making things as easy as possible. So the mining bot, well, maybe not as easy as possible, but as convenient as possible. That's probably the better way of putting that, because if I want to make more mining bots, I'm probably always going to have to go into this menu and then select the mining bot behavior, but I can also just pin it. And if I do that, not only can I select that behavior from up here, I have a shortcut to do that as well. And that just means that if I want another bot to behave, I can just press Z, do this, and there we go. We already set up another miner just like that. Another thing I really appreciate about this game is the first thing you unlock after all of these little basics is the blueprint mode. This is going to allow us to, you know, actually efficiently build our factory. The challenge should be designing your factory, not fighting the UI and placing things down. Speaking about quality of life things, each new thing you unlock comes with its own kind of tutorial. Sometimes it's an actual tutorial that kind of brings you in the sandbox world and have you test out a few things. But at the very least, it is a show and tell kind of thing that happens to kind of demonstrate what you just unlocked and what the abilities are that you gain by doing that. For the blueprint mode in particular, if you want, you can go into an isometric kind of view or into a top-down view, and you can just switch those whenever you want. So you don't need to pause the game. You can pause the game if you want to, you know, actually go into the blueprint mode and kind of figure things out. You have a nice grid to show you where you can build stuff. But if you prefer playing the game top-down, you can do that. I actually think it kind of looks nice doing it like this, but, you know, preferences are different, and it is nice to have those options. We're almost done with the really basic tutorial stuff, but it's good to kind of guide you through this as well. So logistics 1 is going to give us access to a warehouse. It's going to give us access to a lot of new behaviors, and those are going to allow us to really start making use of our robots in a more efficient way. Because let's say we want to double up on our metal plate production over here. All we need to do is select all the things that we need to double up on. We can clone those, place those down, and you can see now we have the power production up and running. We have the miner as well up and running. It already comes with its automated behavior set exactly the same like we've done over here, but linked to the correct building. And yeah, there we go. Now we have double the production that we had before. Now if I add in a nice little warehouse, let's say, where shall we put it? Let's go with over here. Then we need a mover to move things from over here to this place. Now for most games you would have to either build a belt or have these things be moved one by one, but not in this game. We can go for the merger behavior over here, which actually allows us to select a building and then the destination and then a second building, and then it's going to alternate between these two buildings and merge those two flows back into one single destination over here. And that is just going to make sure that I don't need to have all of these movers moving all over the place. No, just a couple of them will be efficient enough to do this. Because remember, everything takes 10 seconds to produce over here. So this has plenty of time to alternate back and forth between the two. And I can do the same thing, of course, with the crystal as well. What I really appreciate about this game is the fact that you can easily see what's being produced where. It's also fairly easy to spot if you click on a building which robots or which automatons are actually connected to that. So you don't have to guess what's being transported where. You can actually tell whether or not it's requesting an item or transporting an item. All of those are very nice quality of life things. Now, I do wish the glare on the floor was a little bit less bright, but hopefully that is something that will kind of flesh out coming up to release. Remember, this is a pre-alpha version that I'm playing, so nothing like the final product necessarily. And of course, this being a factory game means that we need to scale up our production all the time, because manufacture one is already gonna cost me 10 resources of each of the things we're now producing. We also need to mine some coal, which is just a resource that's over here on the map as well. And then we are going to unlock a general factory that is going to come with 3 new recipes that we can start producing. I should note, by the way, that it's also really easy to change behaviors if you want. You can just click on the robot and then click, for example, if I don't want you to deliver to the smelter, but I want you to deliver to this warehouse instead, because this guy is really slow, I can just do that and do this, and then I have done that exactly like I want. And of course, that means that I need to add in a mover over here that I will then have a splitter behavior, so I can transport from here to here and here. And there we go. Now we already made this a whole lot more efficient than it used to be. And of course, we can apply that to some of the more advanced stuff as well. So let's see. I think I'll set up my factory kind of over here for the more complicated things. Now we do need power for that as well. So let's make sure we add some of that. Let's do it like this, and then one more like there, and then we can set this to start producing some research packs, because we need that for the more advanced mechanics. Now this is going to need 1 of each, so again I can just take a mover, set this to a merger, that's what we wanted. And then I can tell you, okay, you want this thing to go over here and that thing to go over here, and there we go. Now this thing, this stuff is going to be more complex. We don't need these in large numbers necessarily, but I do want to make sure I set up kind of like a mole. And I think I'll set that up. We have a lot of these obstacles in the way that we can clear out in a second, but for the moment we just need to deal with them kind of getting in the way. So let's just place another warehouse over here. And then we can have a mover to just move things from here to here. It doesn't need to be more complicated. Now, of course, we could also just move this stuff straight into the research facility. That is completely up to you. I kind of like having a buffer so I know what's being put where. And, this distance isn't that big that I can just do it manually. As you can see, however, we are running low on power, which I think is something we're going to be able to fix next, because energy production is one of the next things that we can unlock, and that needs that resource that we're now producing. It's worth noting that things don't just completely shut down if you are low on power, but they will start being more slowly. So you do want to make sure you keep up your power, but it's not gonna break your factory if you forget about that for a moment. Now, this game is not just about building a factory, it's also about exploring, and we currently have an objective to go down and explore the fog of war over here. And there should be a building here that is going to bring us to our next part of the quest. Now, each of these unlocks tend to be some sort of challenge that you need to use your automation for to actually handle, and that will get progressively more complicated. There is a little bit of story attached to that as well, which is, I think, quite nicely done. And that really tells you the story about the lands you're exploring. I'm not going to go into that into too much detail right now. But basically we found a backpack that we're going to be able to use for other things. We can move towards the object. Now, right now we only have one choice, but there's supposedly going to be more complicated story mechanics that you have multiple choices for that can affect what you do. In this case, we can either reach for the backpack or retrace your steps. Now, if we reach for it, let's go for that. There's a crack that splits the silence. The house is collapsing and we're going to be running out anyway. Now, once we exit the ruin, we find out that we need a mover to slip through this ruin without being dangerous to ourselves. Now, this is where this game is really starting to shine, because the trial will require us to make use of our automation, but in ways that will get more and more complex. So, Over here, for example, this trial is going to require us to bring metal plates whenever this building emits a red signal. So right now, as you can see, it's emitting that red signal. But a blue signal will mean it will now require a refined crystal. So this is going to change up every now and then. It might alternate. It might just be 3 crystals, then 2 plates, etc. So I cannot do this manually. I cannot deliver anything manually because the mover needs to do that. But on top of that, it's going to be kind of random. So in order to deal with that, we are going to have to play smart. We're going to pick a mover. Now, I can't really design the signals with the base signals that we have, the base behaviors that I have over here, because we can't really do much with those signals. So what we want to do is create a new behavior. And rather than having to program everything by yourself, which a lot of other games sometimes require you to do, which is fun in itself, this game is going to kind of have you make use of a ChatGTP kind of input that is then going to design the behavior for you. You can already see the suggested prompt over here, but we are going to do that ourselves. So let's say we say, when the signal is blue, deliver a refined crystal, as that was the blue signal, from a warehouse to the building. When the signal is red, deliver a metal plate from a different warehouse to the building. Now, this is not a perfect prompt, and I did that intentionally to kind of show you how this works. So let's generate a behavior. It's going to work for a minute trying to figure out what I meant. Sometimes it works a lot better than I would expect, actually. I haven't really had any circumstances yet where I thought I was clear and then it turned out with complete garbage. It's actually really, really good. So it is going to do all the programming for us. You can see that happening here in the background. It also is going to give me some suggestions. So if you use these things, then it's a little bit more clear whether or not these are like parameters, constants, etc. It's already updated that for me. So this is what it came up with. Now you can go through this and kind of dissect what this all means, or you can just save this, deliver on signal caller is what it's suggesting for the name. The names for the behaviors are actually really on point, usually. So that is quite important because, of course, at some point we'll have multiple behaviors and then it's going to be harder to find what we need if we don't name these things clearly. Let's save that. Okay, so when this thing is blue, deliver a refined crystal from somewhere. So we need to select where that's coming from. So this is over here. Where does it need to go? Well, it needs to go over here. So apparently it didn't recognize that those were the same things. However, it will then recognize that the same signal, when that changes to red, comes from the same target. So I don't have to click that anymore. I just need to tell us where the metal plate is going to come from, and it already recognized that it then needs to go to the building itself. So there we go. You can see the robot is now driving off. The robot doesn't need any power himself, so it will function just fine. It should be picking up a metal plate now because the signal currently is red. It will return, and then if the signal changes, it will just keep doing the same thing until this entire trial is then completed. Really, really cool. Now imagine, this is just a fairly basic example, but things will get more and more complicated. How much fun you can have with designing all of these intricate signals. There's no real limit to, what you can have these things do. If you can write it in a prompt, you can have a single robot like going in between several different buildings and just keep going. Now, apparently the second signal was already asking for metal plates as well. So this should now see this deliver a metal plate. And look, now the target switched. So this thing is now, hopefully, yeah, it is going to go to a different warehouse. And this time around, it is going to go to the crystal warehouse. And it's going to pick up a crystal over there. Completely working like intended without me having to do a whole lot of complex programming. But as you can see, if you would have to program this by yourself, you might want to take a few courses in programming in order to do that. Of course, if you are already familiar with that, it's kind of fun to do this yourself as well, and you still can. Because if I go in here and I'm like, okay, I want to edit this behavior, I can add my own parameters, I can change the behaviors, I can delete stuff, move things around. So if you do want to do that, by all means, you still can, but you don't need to. The nice thing about doing these trials is that you don't do them just because you have a bit of a challenge in there. You actually do also unlock upgrades by doing so. Now, again, I'm just going to skip to the story. It's not super interesting. Again, it's just mostly tutorial material. But for example, this particular trial gives me an upgrade to my backpack, allowing me to carry more stuff around. Not only does it do that, the fun thing is that once you actually unlock an upgrade, you can go into your technology tree and you will find it here. So it's actually kind of like a technology unlock. But once you have it, the base one that is, you can also invest some more resources into it to upgrade that even further. So every time you do one of those trials that gives you an ability, you can then also use your factory to further upgrade that ability on top of that. In order to find more trials, we're going to have to unblock some of these obstacles that are in the way, and the nice thing about that is that we can produce some dynamite to do exactly that. So you can see I expanded my factory quite a bit, and now I can just move over to here and start blowing things up, and that will allow me to explore more parts of the map. Now there's also these natural bridges that you can then kind of knock over and use that for exploring, and you will find more and more resources. So it feels really rewarding to go over the map, unlock more of those robots that you can then start building and expand your factory accordingly. However, there's also going to be enemies on the map. And well, for the moment, we can't do anything about that, so we're going to have to do some more trials in order to unlock kind of defensive options. There's also new materials in the map, so you can see uranium is going to come in over here, and these enemies will do not that much to attack you for the moment, but that will change, of course, later on in the game. And just like before, in order to get new capabilities to my factory and to my little machine over here, we need to do more trials. And specifically, if we uncover this old world drone, this will give us access to some guns on our own little wheel over here. And in order to do that, we need to move this crane back and forth a few times, and we do that by loading and unloading metal plates in this little basket over here. So you can see the signal changes depending on where we need to move the crane. So we built an entire thing over here. I can actually show you that. A conditional item movement routine, again, just using the AI function to kind of do that, saying, okay, if this thing is yellow, you need to move the plates onto the crane. If this thing is red, you need to move things out of the crane. And it's not a super complicated thing, it's actually quite similar to the one we just did, but these things will become more and more complicated, and it's a nice little way to train yourself on writing correct prompts in order to make these drones do what you want them to do. What I really like about this behavior automation that we can easily program is that it also allows me to optimize my factory. So you can see I'm kind of running out of space over here to really expand. I'm making dynamite and stuff, but I expanded down south in order to make advanced research, which is what this entire facility down here is dedicated to. In order to do that, I need to use some new recipes, and these recipes have 2-to-1 ratio. So I need 2 of one thing and then 1 of another thing. So I could just have a bot move between these 2 production locations and then another bot to this. So I am just delivering whatever I need. But why have 2 bots if you can have a single bot doing all of that? Because the production of 25 seconds is long enough for 1 bot to deliver everything on time. Now, that means I need a specified behavior, because the merger itself is just going to go bring equal things in, but that will not work efficiently because I only need 1 of one each and then 2 of the other one. So what I need to do is make a new behavior and then just say, okay, deliver item A from warehouse A to factory. And now let's copy that. I need to bring in a second item as well. So item B from warehouse B to the factory. And then let's bring in the first item once again. Now I'm intentionally alternating this because this will trigger the production cycle in both these factories as quickly as possible. And I think this should do the trick. Let's find out. Let's also see what the name of the behavior that it will suggest actually is, because that tends to be quite on point in my experience, although it's definitely not foolproof, and you definitely need to check whether your behavior is actually, well, behaving like intended. So don't think this is just, you just type in some stuff and then you're done. It does most of the work for you, I will say, but just like actual programming and vibe coding, you still need to check if your work is actually, correct or the AI's work, I guess, in this case. So let's see. We deliver item A from warehouse A to factory, then B to from... yeah, this looks pretty much what we suggested. Again, this is still pretty straightforward, of course. Cycle ABA delivery. Yep, this is exactly what it is, so I'm really impressed with that naming. And then let's see, so what are we delivering? Because I specified item types in the prompt, it will also allow me to select items from the list. This makes it more flexible, because if we have like just a dumping center, a warehouse where we have multiple types of items, this will make sure that we bring the correct items. So we want... The first item is the one that we need 2 of, so that is the refined crystal, and then we are going to deliver that from here to here. And then we need some of that crystal compound, and that's going to come from over here. And there you go. Now it's going to drive up and down from this one to this one. Then it will go back to this one and then deliver that. And then it should start over here again. Yep. And now we're picking up from over here. Yep. So all working like intended, which is awesome. Anyway, let's complete the actual challenge, and as you can see, we get now some guns attached to our ship, and we can start making some ammunition. Now, let's see if we can find one of those robots. Yep, over here. And let's start shooting at them. And they will shoot back, but as long as we keep moving, these aren't particularly challenging. So if you are someone who doesn't really like combat in their games too much, don't worry, this is not super stressful, at least not in the parts that I've seen so far. Now, these bots will also drop loot, so there is definitely a reason to pick this stuff up. You can automatically pick things up by pressing F, so it's kind of like an action RPG at this point. You need to switch your guns on, and of course we don't want to keep fighting these robots by ourselves the entire time, because that would be kind of difficult to defend your entire factory once you're all over the place. Because, for example, this factory over here, if I check the map, you can see this red square. This means that because I am building buildings in a red square, this will attract the enemy to me. Now, again, early on in the game, you can do this at your leisurely pace. Even though I have a factory in here, I have never actually been attacked. But as soon as you progress a little bit further, you will kind of unlock the enemy spawns, and then you will get attacked. So we definitely want to start automating our defenses as well. And that is why I set up another production hub over here down in the south. So this is just below where we did the actual trial. And I am now making some ammunition. I'm storing that in our warehouse over here. Now, I also put up a little bit of a gun turret over here. So hopefully if we have any enemies coming through here, the gun will start shooting at it. And you can see it can shoot apparently 3 times with 1 ammo. It has some ammo in storage as well. And it has a mover waiting to deliver some more. And yeah, that is hopefully going to make sure I stay safe. Now, of course, I might want to add some additional turrets in here and set up additional defense places as well, but that's going to require quite a bit of logistics, because as you can see, this is quite a distance, and it's not the biggest difference ever. But I am also making some ammunition back in my main camp, because I have a large amount of coal over here, which I need to make gunpowder. Now, transporting things from over here to, you know, down here is going to take quite a bit of distance, and these movers are not that quick. So, by the way, what I'm actually doing here is delivering some robot materials for the automatons so I can build more from my little robot building facility that I have now automated, because we progressed a little bit further thanks to my advanced research. Now, how do I get things transported across long distance? You can still use the movers, but like I said, these are pretty slow, so there's a more efficient way of doing this. Okay, here's a robot going for one of the red zones, and as you can see, it just gets taken out almost instantly by my turret. So defending your base is crucial, but not super hard, at least not initially. It was also interesting to see that it just went straight through my main base, ignoring everything else along its path, but, you know, that is what it is. As you can see, this other robot is going to approach the base from a different angle, so you do need to make sure that all the entrances to your base are secured. And if you have movers and stuff like that going through, you know, hostile zones, they might get killed. So that is something you want to take into consideration when setting up your factory, but also when setting up your supply lines. which is where trucks come in. And trucks are basically larger versions of the mover. So let me just build a mover next to it for comparison. You can see this is quite a bit bigger. It's also quite a bit more efficient. So these things are made for long distance hauling, and they come with a nice little behavior. I didn't have to program this myself. That does exactly this. Now the way these trucks work is you build a truck hub, which is basically a loading unloading station. As you can see, I have a mover dedicated to move things from a warehouse to a truck hub, because you cannot actually store stuff in here. But what I can do is say to this truck, okay, let's go over here. You want to pick up, in this case, we want to pick up some energy cells. We want to pick them up over here. Now, how many do we want to pick up? Let's say 5. You can make this quite a bit of a different number. I'll get to that in a second. And then I want to go all the way down here and deliver them over here where I built another one of these hubs. Now, the reason I want to transport this is in order to make these robots, I need some of those chips, but I also need energy cells. So I'm producing the chips over here, but the energy cells over there. So this is why we want to transport them. Now, this will make this thing dock with this hub over here. As you can see, the mover over here will start loading this onto the truck. And you can see a single truck can transport up to 100 items. Now, as you can see, this thing starts moving really slow initially, but then it will speed up. And now it's just zooming across the map. It's actually slightly faster than my main vehicle itself. So it will then dock, and it will get offloaded by a hauler over here. So this is a very basic example of what you can do with this, but having a couple of trucks will make it very easy to have long distance supply lines. And I really like that we are doing all of this with robots rather than belts all over the place. You don't have spaghetti in this game. It's a spaghetti-free game. But it's still really smart in how you can do this. You can do it very basic. You kind of brute force your way through it. But yeah, it's also worth noting, by the way, and this is a question I get usually asked when reviewing new games: are resources infinite in this game? The answer is sort of, because there's small deposits. For example, over here we have a small coal deposit. That will run out really quick. Don't look at the number, by the way, because that doesn't seem to reflect the actual amount of resources in here. But the medium deposits, like this one over here, they do run out. I actually had one of my medium, metal deposits run out over here. But luckily there was a much larger one right next to that. So you don't run out of resources really quick. But there seems to be a finite amount in there. Now, that being said, this one that I've been using from the start, as well as this one for the crystals, that's still going. I've made hundreds of things from there, so you don't have to worry about running out anytime soon, but it does seem to be kind of a intent for these things to not last forever. Speaking of which, I probably need to do something with my power supply as well. Is this all connected? Yeah, it is. So I really like how this game looks. Look at all the factories I've already set up over here, and of course we were expanding down south as well. All in all, this is looking really fun. It's really interesting to do all of this. Now, let's talk a little bit about the end game on a single scenario, because this game is not just building everything on one large map, but you are actually going to be expanding from island to island. Before we get into that, what I also want to point out, by the way, is that I really like how the game is non-linear in how it allows you to kind of expand and progress through the technology tree. As you can see, once you unlock research pack number 2, for example, you can immediately start researching manufacturing for some additional types of research. For example, you can get access to an advanced factory that allows you to make the robots that I just showed you. However, you can also decide, well, I want to make my power in a different way, which allows you to make a power plant that then runs on fuel. But you can also just focus on trucks first. You definitely want to pick up all of these things, so you know you are gonna just go through the technology tree layer by layer. But you can pick and choose. You can also just decide to just focus on increasing your base production a little bit and then get some upgrades unlocked, like I've done over here. So now I can carry around 4 things. I'm also moving around a little bit faster because I increased the upgrades that I got from the trials. And as you can see, there's plenty more to come after this, so it's not like this is the basics of the game already. Most of the technologies are going to be gated behind specific trials, so this is where the next focus is going to be. And this is where the game does require you to kind of do these challenges in order to progress, because in order to unlock Resource Pack 3, we're going to need an archive thread, and this is knowledge collected from the Grand Archives. Now, how do you do that? Wait for it. Now, the game isn't called Brave New Wonders because it uses AI, it's actually because we are going to be exploring these large objects on the map that have something to do with the ancients that came before. Now, what's really fun is that each of these locations seems to be tied to a region of the actual world, so it's a bit hard to see, but beneath the fog lore over here you can kind of see the outline of the Statue of Liberty, so I guess we're in America. And the Sky Pillar has a bit of lore attached to it as well. So, in the middle of the lake stands the Sky Pillar, which you have read many times in ancient Skyborn lore. Water flows into a vast sinkhole at its center, sending ripples down the surface. Moss covers the walls and rust clings to the weathered frame, showing the weight of centuries. Overgrown plants surround the ruins, adding to the sense of a solemn neglect. From its highest point, you glimpse a faint flicker deep below, glimmering within the darkness at its base, as if something still stirs beneath. Now we're gonna set up some scaffolding and build a crane to explore the structure. And yeah, in order to do that, we're going to need quite a bit of material. So let's set that up and let's start delivering that to this building. Okay, I went back and picked some stuff up and let's put that in here. So we are going to start building the Sky Pillar. Crane's up, but the sinkhole is still choked with strange gushes of wind. I can't explore the Sky Pillar like this. Nope. Is the wind knocking the platform off balance? No, not quite. The wind seems to be either extremely hot or extremely cold, and this is a core mechanic of the game, hence why I'm going to go through a little bit of this conversation. It's putting strains on the excavating automatons. Okay, automatons? Automatons? I don't know. Mira, we can always use coal to keep the automaton warm, but use thermal plate to shield the platform from heat. But I need to respond to the changes in temperature dynamically. We can use a powerful technology called signal intelligence. It allows us to configure units to monitor external and internal conditions and emit the right signal at the right time. Now, again, this is just going to expand on the signal mechanics that we have already available, but really make things a bit more dynamic. And this is also why you kind of start need to use the prompts, because, well, in order to make things do what you want them to do, you either need to be an engineer or someone who can actually use the AI properly. Okay. This goes beyond basic automation. The Academy strongly recommends you complete the signal intelligence tutorial before proceeding. Now, I'm not going to do that, but I'm just going to show you how to actually build this thing in practice. Alright, so as you can see, this particular Sky Pillar is going to erupt with gas every now and then, and that's going to heat up this place. So you can see right now just jump from 40 degrees to 80 degrees, which is higher than where we need it to be. Every time it is outside of the region that we need it to be in, which is between 25 and 70 degrees, the excavation progress is going to decline. Every time we have it in here, it's going to expand, and we need to keep it in the safe zone for 75 seconds. Now, in order to do that, we can either raise the temperature by depositing coal, or we can lower the temperature by depositing thermal plates. And that means we need this building to send out a signal. Now, so far, the buildings have been sending out their own signals, already kind of predefined, but right now we are going to need to set this up manually. So we are going to go into the signal behavior over here, and we are just going to have it send out a either blue or red signal. Let's create that, and then let's see, show as blue when above 70 degrees, and show as red when below 20 degrees. This is not, I think, what we want in the end, but let's just keep it very simple. Now, generate the signal behavior, and I'll also show you how you can adapt this. So this is going to be very straightforward. It is going to have blue and red with conditions, and this is going to recognize the temperature is a thing. And let's just save this for the moment. So blue above 70, red below 20 is how the behavior is going to be called. That sounds about on point. Oh, it should have been 25, but I think that's going to be fine. And yeah, that by itself is not actually going to do anything. However, it is going to signal that accordingly, I think. Now, can we see what the signal is? Right now, it's not going to signal anything because it's actually in the safe zone, so it's actually not signaling anything at all. But when the gas erupts, I think we should see it pop up, yep, and now it starts sending out a blue signal, kind of signaling, at least in my mind, to be cooled down, because we need some thermal plating now to decrease the temperature. Now, I don't have the materials on hand right now. I could just import them from my actual factory, or I can set up some production facilities over here to do that manually. I already set up some defensive lines just to make sure that there's no robots coming in, because this is a red zone. So be right back while I set that up. Okay, so I set up a bit of a production facility over here specifically dedicated to this goal. So I'm producing some crystals that I need in order to make the crystal compound, and some metal as well. And then I am making thermoplate in a couple of factories for that. I have way more than I probably need, but you know, having a supply to make sure I can manage the temperature correctly is quite useful. I'm also using these advanced power plants that are just running on coal rather than just generating power out of nowhere. Mostly because I have coal available over here. Now, it's worth noting that I also have some natural gas over here that I can't currently use, but it's probably going to be one of the next few things we unlock. And let's see. So over here, right now the temperature is perfect, but remember, I want it to actually increase when it's below 25 rather than 20. So let me go into this thing over here and edit the behavior. Now, this thing should be set at something different than 20, so add a new parameter. This is going to be, I don't know, let's call this threshold. There we go. And please proceed with caution, yes. And then I'm gonna set this to, let's see, threshold is over here. This is going to be a constant number. This is going to be 25, there we go. And this should now do the trick, I think. Now, we're also going to rename this behavior, of course, so let's save this. Let's set this to be red below 25, there we go. And now we've edited it manually. Now, do you need to do this? No, I could just have ran the prompt all over again, just to show you that if you do want to do the programming yourself, you still can. Now, we don't need to use the AI behaviors for everything. So, for example, right here, I just set up a specific warehouse for the thermal plates, one for the coal, and then I can just do this. I can move item on signal from hub. This is one of the default behaviors that the game comes with. If the signal over here is blue, then we're going to move an item from here to over here. And then we can do the same thing here, so we can move an item on signal. If this is red, then we're going to move an item from here to here, and that should do the trick. So let's see, it's now above 70, so you can see there's thermal plates being delivered. And yeah, we are now at 60, so there's no signal, so no one is moving. And then as soon as the next gas eruption happens, I think this is going to jump up again, and that should do the trick just fine. And then all we need to do is wait a little bit for the timer to tick up, and we should be golden. As a side note, while we're waiting, now that we have signal behaviors unlocked, the game really opens up a lot of complexity that you can tap into. So, for example, we can set behaviors to our vehicles, but more importantly, we can also set behaviors to our buildings now. So, for example, if I have a warehouse over here, I could design a behavior, or a signal behavior to be specific, that sends a signal once a certain warehouse drops below a certain amount of capacity, and that could then trigger another building to start producing and resupplying that warehouse with a specific type of resource. So you can really make your entire factory dynamic. I might have to make a video about that, but for now let's stick to the basics for the moment. Okay, I think we're about to excavate this successfully. There we go. Yep, they have completed their trial. And let's explore the sky pillar, and we get another nice little animation on top of that. You grip the rope and begin your descent. Darkness closes in as time stretches. Far beneath, faint light flickers. The unknown awaits at the bottom. Okay, so at the center of the underground chamber stands a huge cylindrical device with a transparent surface. Inside, faint light glimmers from the gas that still lingers. Thick tubes and wires snake outwards. It's kind of interesting, by the way. Crawling up the walls and disappearing into the dark. Detach the core and continue exploring. Okay. On the terminal attached to the giant glowing core, you uncover a fragmented operator log. July 12th, 2298. External air pressure and seismic instability continues to worsen. The wellhead trembles. Gas output remains erratic. As of this shift, however, all refinery storage tanks remain within safe capacity. Current projections indicate reserves sufficient for approximately 1,000 years. During that period, the cryogenic embryos housed within the Earth Ark Mother Vault are expected to remain secure. I have a feeling there's going to be a bit of a story there. Continue exploring. Up some flights of stairs, you step into what was once a worker barracks above the gas processor chamber. Rows of dented lockers line the walls and bunks sag beneath the weight of decades of dust. A dim shaft of light falls across the room. A circular reinforced window clouded by time lets in a sliver of daylight. This level must sit close enough to the surface for sun to reach it. On the wall illuminated by the window hangs a brittle aging map. You recognize one portion of land as what you've come to know as the surface, but the label reads America. Call it. And beyond it lies other territories with shapes you have never seen before. You may end your examination or continue exploring the room to see what more awaits. Not sure why we would end the examination, so let's continue on. On the desk are scattered papers. Among them, a communication log catches your eye. Earth Ark Providence. Central computer exhibiting continuous abnormal loop cycle, imminent loss of uplink with Skyark. Skyark? Okay. Expedite delivery of backup core chip and full data delivery, Providence. Earth Ark. Enter designated oceanic zone. Levantanium anomalies triggering localized gravity surges and magnetic storms. Okay. Interesting. So the Sky Pillar wasn't a temple after all, it's a lab, but what were they studying that glowing core I retrieved? What is it? Let me see. There's something swirling inside. Looks like weird air, maybe some kind of trapped vapor. I've read about mysterious old world machines that progress underground gases into usable fuel. This might be part of one. I'm kind of wondering how they don't know about gases while we are already making, robots, but I don't know. Let's just go with it. So, is that what the Sky Pillar was? A fuel factory? I think so. This is so fascinating. I believe I can create a blueprint for a buildable structure that's going to replicate their gas processor technology. This is a game changer for us. Fetch that map and let's haul it back to the train station. I need a closer look at base. And unsurprisingly, this just gave us access to a new type of technology that will allow us to make use of gases. And if you thought the game looked really straightforward so far, well, you would kind of be right, but remember, this is kind of the tutorial level, and this is also where the behaviors now have all unlocked, and we get access to a lot more new recipes that just require us to really think about how we design our factory. So, for example, the natural gas processor is going to allow us to get some natural gas into here, and then that's going to produce either one of two things. So it's going to produce mostly methane, 80% chance, but every now and then it's also going to spit out helium, which methane can be used in order to, for example, power our facilities, but helium itself cannot be used to do that, so we'll need to kind of siphon that off and use that for other things. Now, luckily, we also have, if we go to the overview over here, so this is really nice. You can really click through in the production centers to see, okay, what do I do with this? How do I make this? And in this case, for example, helium can also be used along with some crystal shards to make thermoplates. So this is an alternative way to make thermoplates by making sure that we use the byproduct that we get from processing gas. Now, of course, that means we need to have a dynamic setup over here where we're either exporting the methane or the helium, depending on what's being produced, and then get that to the right parts of our facility. Even more importantly, however, we kind of want to get out of this tutorial level, and that's where this map is going to come in. Hey gang, I've got this old world map. Take a look, it's showing far more than just this land. Incredible other continents were spoken of in only legends. This might be the first real evidence they truly existed. Let me see that. These names, Europe, Asia, and these latitude lines and markers, I've seen fragments like this before in the Old World archives. Most likely these were the names Old World people gave to these continents. So people live there too? Cities, civilizations? I have to see them with my own eyes. Perhaps, but the oceans are still extremely dangerous to cross. Dangerous, yes, but not impossible. I believe I can use the archives to chart a route and draft a blueprint for a very powerful long-range airship right away. And that means we are gonna have to build an airship hub, which I've already done here because I had all the materials for that, and then we're going to bring in some resources in order to build the actual airship. Okay, and with all those resources now in my hub, I can start building my first airship, and I was already excited about this game up until this point, but this is really what sold me for putting it on my wish list and making sure we're going to be playing this once this goes live. Because, well, let me just show you actually. We're going to be building an airship, and this is going to serve as a mobile base. On board you can build factories and continue your production chain even while on the move. Now, let me show you what it looks like. With our airship now built, we can use this hub to actually board it, and look at that. We have a little bit of a building area over here where we can start building stuff on our airship as a mobile platform, remember. Now there's only a limited amount of space, so you will need to be efficient with what you create here, but you also need to be picky. You can actually bring stuff on board of the airship through this gangplank over here. This is not going to allow you to stockpile a lot of stuff on here, but you can actually bring things on board and off board through this thing over here. And you can see it has a fair amount of capacity. And once we do that, we can start to command our airship and move across the world. So right now you can see we are in America over here, but we can also start moving across the map. Now right now we don't have a lot of things explored, but for example we have access to Europe now. In order to get here though, we're going to need fuel, so we are going to need to make sure we produce fuel for our airship. Now don't worry, if you are halfway in between islands and you run out of fuel, your ship will return to the last island you came from, I think. So you're not going to be stuck in the middle of nowhere. And on top of that, look at this, we can actually assign behavior to our airship as well. So that is something to keep in mind. We can completely automate what our mobile platform does as well. So I don't know about you, but that gets me extremely excited about where this game is going to take us next. And on that note, remember that if you haven't done so yet, try out the demo for yourself. It is live during Steam Next Fest. And make sure to add the game to your wishlist if this looks interesting to you at all. I'm sure going to be playing a lot more of this. And I would, again, like to thank the developers for bringing this on my radar, because actually I had no idea this game was going to come out, but it looks extremely interesting and I've had a lot of fun playing through it so far. And just to give you a bit of a sneak peek of what comes next, we just arrived in Europe, and as you can see, this is a completely different type of environment. It's really frosty and cold, and well, if you look at the map, there is a whole new map for us to explore and progress on. This will give us access to new abilities. We'll still have use of our initial base, because that's where fuel is going to come from, that's where a lot of building materials are going to come from, that I should have probably taken with me, because right now, as you can see, we need to start building a hub over here. But there's no reason to despair, because we can always just go back to the starting island, get some more materials there, and by doing so just expand our factory literally across the world. Again, super excited about this game. I hope you are too. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, thoughts, etc. And let's look forward to playing this game a bit more. If you're still here, you're awesome, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.